Alright, so taking a look at those passwords again, the enable secret and the enable passwords, the only ones here that we've configured so far. Let's go ahead and review a couple of other ones very quickly. Now we've got a password, a couple of lines down here that we can password protect as well. We've got the console port, and those are a couple of commands I put on for lab purposes. Those were not on by default. We've got our auxiliary port, and we've also got our telnet connections. Now we're going to be spending quite a bit of time with telnet later, so what I'm going to do right now is just quickly put a password on each one of these lines, and then we'll take a look at the show run config output and see what happens there. So let's go with line con 0, password football. Baseball. Password Richmond. You would also need the login command there, of course, on the VTY lines. Now let's take a look at show run. And we're going to take a look now. None of those passwords are going to be encrypted by default, right? Isn't that the deal? The enable secret is the only one that's encrypted by default. Let's take a quick look. And right down here they are just sitting there in clear text. Password football, password baseball, password Richmond. Now, the reason that we use the command that we're about to use, as well as the enable secret password, is really to protect what is sometimes jokingly referred to as the over-the-shoulder network attack. And I know that sounds kind of funny that someone would look over your shoulder and actually see a password and then go home and try to use it for telnet purposes, but it has happened. It's happened with all those passwords. So it's not exactly a sophisticated hacking attack. It's not like, a hacker's going to sneak into the network room, hide behind you, hope that you don't hear them, and then peek at your passwords. But here's a really great command. Actually, let me show you at the very top of this output here what the default is. This is a service that we're going to enable called password-encryption. Notice the hyphen there, because if you keep forgetting that when you're typing, it's going to drive you nuts. Service password encryption is what we want to enable. Now, do you think that's the only service that we have on a Cisco router? And by the way, I asked that. Even if you didn't know the answer, that's incorrect. There are plenty of services. Actually, let's use iOS Help and take a look at all these services. That's a lot of services, and some of these are actually security issues as well that we're going to look at throughout the course. It's not like you got to know this whole list, but there are a couple in there for security purposes you should know. But the only one that shows up in this config, and most configs that I've ever seen by default, is that service password encryption. So to enable it, all we're going to do is service password encryption. And we're going to do a quick save there, and then we're going to take a look at the result. Will all of those passwords be encrypted by service password encryption? Because we've got an auxiliary password, a VTY password, a console password, and also an enable password sitting there in clear text. And let's take a look at the top. Now you'll notice the enable password has been encrypted. And as we go down to the bottom of the list, and you can see there are different results for all of them. And there would have been different results for them even if I'd used the same word for each. So again, that's effective against somebody looking over your shoulder. But do you know how long it would take someone to crack those passwords that really knew what they were doing? And maybe even if they didn't? If they knew what they were doing, it would take about 5 seconds. If they didn't know what they were doing, it might take 10 seconds, that is. Because this is a very weak encryption. And this is something off of Cisco's site as well, the quote that I have on the board, because the encryption that's actually used by the service password encryption command, that's not even as strong as the MD5 encryption used by enable secret. And that particular MD5 encryption is not very strong to begin with. And from Cisco's own website to your ears and mine, the algorithm used by the service password encryption command is a simple Vignere cipher. You can pronounce it however you want as long as you know the word by sight. The algorithm is not designed to protect configuration files against serious analysis by, I love this phrase, even slightly sophisticated attackers, and must not be used for this purpose. So what they're saying is, beyond the over-the-shoulder network attack, do not rely on this to really encrypt your passwords beautifully. But it is a good thing to have running on your racks as well. So that actually wraps up our password review for right now, and some real-world tips in there for you as well. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and stop the video, and on the next one, we're going to take a look at the Network Time Protocol, NTP, a protocol that's been around for a long time, centuries in network time. We'll discuss that as well, and also why it is so important. So I will see you over there.